Welcome to Refuel with Jennifer Ballou. Join Jennifer for the next hour for a time to recharge, refresh, and refuel your heart and soul. Here's your host, Jennifer Ballou.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're joining me today for Refuel. We are continuing to talk about spring cleaning. And I'm not talking about your homes, even though that is a really good idea. We are talking about our lives, that we want to empty ourselves, that we want God to come in and do the home edit and let Him go through those things with us and look at things that we need to get rid of, that we need to put on display, that we need to freshen up, all those different things. And just like with our homes, when we do a spring cleaning process, it's not that you do that one time and it's it for the rest of your life. It doesn't work that way. It just gives you a fresh start, a new place to really work from, so that if we start that work internally, we have a place that we can always refresh from. It requires this commitment from us to take time with each passing season that we say, okay, God, is there something new here that we need to look at and go through? And so that brings me to something that's really important that I think that we have lost, or we've kind of mixed up some words. There's a word called self-aware, and I think we get that mixed up with self-absorbed a lot. And so we've put this negative concept on the word self-aware. But self-aware is a very good thing, and we need to become self-aware. I'm just going to read you a couple of things I've written down about self-awareness. If you, here's just the meaning of self-aware. It means you have a sharp realization of your personality, including your strengths and weaknesses. Now, this is very important. You have a strong realization of your thoughts and beliefs, your emotions, and your motivations. You see, it's very important to know and understand all those things so that we can know how some of this clutter that we find in this time of spring cleaning, how it got there and how we can keep from allowing it to come back in. When we are self-aware, it's easier for us to understand other people and to detect how they perceive us in return. It's just one of those things where it helps you to step back out of the situation, to not be in a place of self-absorption, but to stand back and look at it as a whole picture, and to maybe understand why this person is reacting to you this way, why maybe you're reacting out of, whatever motivation or emotion, how you're acting, different things like that. And being aware creates an opportunity to make changes in one's behavior and beliefs. And I think this is really key in this time of spring cleaning, that we become aware of ourselves, how we react to things, what triggers us, where our motivation comes from, and we'll get to that in a minute. But out of all of that comes this chance for us to change, to grow, to become more like the person that God has created us to be, without all this yuck sitting on top of us that has, changed the way the room looks, basically. It helps us pinpoint what our passions and emotions are, and how your personality can help you in life. So, we've spent a lot of time talking about identity, but this is just one of those things that helps us in that process of really understanding who God made us to be, why He made us passionate about some things, why we dislike others, how we can interact with and grow with and learn with people, and just all those aspects of who we are. We have to become self-aware. So I have with me today a guest, Jody Barnett. She is a licensed counselor. We are going to be talking about the Enneagram. That is not the only thing out there. It's just one of those things that Jody and I both happen to like, that has really helped us become more self-aware, to help us to look at patterns and grow, and to do some spring cleaning because of those patterns, because of certain responses that we both have. And you'll get to hear all that in the upcoming segment. So, this is Jody Barnett. Yes, I said the right last name.
Yeah, you can say Ingram. I'll go by that too.
So can you tell everybody what you do, why am I interviewing?
Yes, okay. I'm a social worker. First of all, been a social worker for several years, and then now I'm a counselor, a licensed counselor in private practice, and I still do social work. I do hospice visits for a hospice company, and I love that. I don't know if I ever want to quit doing my social work stuff.
Wow, that's amazing. That takes a different breed.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
That's cool.
I love it.
That's good. With the pandemic, I never say that word right. Anyway, there's lots of words I don't say right, but that word I really have a hard time with. I have realized how much that is needed with the older community.
Yeah,
they're
very
really
neglected.
hard. Really, really hard.
Yeah.
With my father-in-law and stuff. So anyway,
Yeah.
but one of the main reasons I have Jody on today is for our spring cleaning series. And last week we talked about investing, and we really focused in on investing in others. And I kept mentioning investing in ourselves. And one of the things I think investing in ourselves looks like is learning about yourself. And if you've listened to Refuel at all for very long, I am big on personality tests and all those things. I love those things.
Me too.
So Jody, although she says she's not an expert, she knows more than the common person on Enneagram and different things like that. And again, I think that's just one of those kind of things, a tool you should have in your tool belt when, really focusing in on learning about yourself, the things that trigger you, the things that kind of make you react in certain situations and in different things like that. Which, if you're thinking, well, what does that have to do with spring cleaning? I think there's a lot of times where things trigger us, or different things happen that we kind of put it in the box, put it in the storage room, and we don't ever want to look at it again. And God's kind of saying, okay, we're going to bring these things up. We're going to look at them, and we're either going to get rid of them, we're going to refurbish them, we're going to, rehab it, whatever, throw it out. But to do that, we really got to know ourselves and what caused that reaction and different things like that. Okay, so we recorded all of that without any video. That's cool. We're just going to keep going, so.
You sure?
Yes. I don't want to read it.
Okay.
So if you were just watching a blank screen, here we are.
No, here we are. For real.
So, anyway, so just what are your thoughts on the Enneagram? How do people kind of figure that out? Because, it'll give you different answers sometimes.
I love it because I'm struggling with, am I looking at you or the
Whatever
screen?
you want to look at. No, it's so weird. We're so professional.
So not professional at this. I love the Enneagram because I think it does help you get to know yourself. That's the main thing about it. And that's a big part of doing counseling is like being a reflection to someone. And, you know, we all have a certain way we see things or do things that all of us, it's distorted in some way. I don't care how healthy you are. You're going to see things in a distorted way through a certain lens. And if you it's like when you tell a childhood story with your sibling and you're like, well, I was there and that's not what happened at all. Right. It's totally different. What are you talking about? That's why, because we all see things. Yeah. We focus on one thing and the other person focused on something else. And so Enneagram is kind of a way to see yourself. And it's of course generalized. You know, there's 9 types and you kind of find yourself in a type with certain like tendencies and motives. It's really all about motives. And so I love that because it gets right to your heart, like the core desires. So in any Enneagram authors that you'll read, they'll talk about core desires and core fears. And it's just all about like why you do what you do. So we could do, you and I may do the same thing, but it's for a different reason. Yeah. So I'm a 6 with a 5 wing. So I do a lot of things kind of out of a fear, like preparing for something bad might happen. Yeah. And so how can I, you know, protect my people and gather my people and provide for everybody. And, but, you know, I might do something with that motive in place. And then another person may do something and it's totally different. Yeah.
I'm like a 1.
I'm not surprised at all to hear that.
So I'm that gut instinct thing. I am totally gut instinct. So.
Can you remember what are the fears and desires of a 1? I don't know them all by heart.
To be the good, to be good,
a good person, morally good,
and right, which I have a hard time with that term. Because I'm not the kind of person who like, well, I'm right and you're wrong. I want to do it correctly. I think that's a better phrase than right. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does. Right means too many things.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. And I just want to do it the correct way. If this is how you want me to do it, that's how I want to, do it. And they term it a perfectionist. And I can understand that. I can see where that term comes in, but I try so hard not to fall into that category. I want to do things with excellence because perfectionism is an unattainable goal. So there's some things within the language of Enneagram that I'm kind of like, man,
Well, and it depends on the author.
Yeah.
I love Ian Cron. His book is a great starter, The Road Back to You. If you want to learn more about it, for sure read that book. Don't just go take a test online, because I have clients a lot of times will talk about it and they go take the test and they're like, well, I'm an 8, I took the test and okay, now we're done, Yeah. And I'm like, no, you're just getting started and you might not even be an 8. You might be that the test is like, I don't know, some people say 30% accurate. I don't know if that's true or not, but a lot of people mistest or mistype themselves on a test. So
because you have to be heartbreakingly honest.
And very self-aware.
Yeah.
When I first took the test, I'm like, I don't even know what I do. How to answer this question, because I don't even know myself that well to answer it right. And so, but I think the more you search and like you read and I loved Annie F. Downs' That Sounds Fun podcast. She interviewed 2 people, a male and a female from each type. Oh, cool. And I really found myself in those a lot, like listening to those people and little stories they would tell and thinking, I would do that. I'm definitely a 6 because I thought I might be a 1 sometimes. But the 1 has an inner critic. The 6 has an inner committee.
Oh, so I do have an inner critic for sure.
So we still have that critical, like, what should you do? You should do this, but it's from all these different angles. And so a 6,
it's a committee.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my.
And a 6 will tend to seek out counsel from a lot of people to make decisions because they don't really trust themselves.
Yeah.
And they want to get, this exhaustive research done to make sure they make the right decision and out of fear probably.
Yeah.
So that's the inner committee.
I see. Yeah.
But so
ones are that quick decision. I'll make it right then and right there.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I'm the one that's actually in charge or not.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, you've asked me the question. This is the decision. Moving on.
Whereas if I'm in charge, I have to take time to make a decision to really think through all the different angles first because I might screw it up. And really, I probably would make a great decision because I'm overthink everything ahead of time. But I don't. I think about it forever. So.
Yeah. But like learning yourself, investing in that process of doing things like sorry, phone rang and now I guess
distracted.
Yeah, it happens. Squirrel. Anyway, but really learning about yourself, because God's greatest commandment was to love others as you love yourself.
Yep.
Well, if I can learn about myself and really get an understanding about who I am and what motivates me, how all that works, I can also then learn about 6s or 4s, 7s,
Absolutely.
8s, whatever. And I can have a broader perspective and love people better. I know that's one of the things Kim, my cousin Kim, has said about the Enneagram when their whole family kind of went through it and did it. And she said, well, it just makes you love your people better. And I think that's just in general, when we kind of understand more about ourselves, we can step back from situations and have a broader perspective and really look at things outside of ourselves. So it's good to be self-aware, as in learning of who you are, but then you have to take yourself out of situations to really look at those and to not get offended.
Yes.
That's another thing that's really helpful.
Well, I think that I love that and how she said that, because you can see someone's annoying behavior and then you're like, oh, they're a 7. Like it sounds silly, but once you learn all the types, you say that's just them being a whatever, you can show grace better. Yeah. I've definitely been able to do that in a lot of ways. And I think like when you said loving yourself, that's different than self-worship. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, like love yourself, like that's so humanistic. But that's not the same as worshiping yourself or being, all into yourself. I think it's accepting yourself for the way that God made you. And He loves you. Right. And He sees you every detail. And you accept and love yourself, for what He's created you to be. Yeah. Therefore, you can love others. Yeah. Because when we're just hating and down on ourselves, we're more focused on ourselves than if we can love and accept ourselves. Yeah. And then love others, which is what we're supposed to do.
I think probably growing up in church, especially our generation, which Jody's younger than me. So.
Oh, just a little bit. Like 8 years, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Ish.
That's pretty good. Anyway, but still, our generation growing up in church, I think that is part of a struggle of the loving yourself. And we were talking before we hit record on the microphone and then on the video, anyway, about how, you say it again for me.
I'm trying to think how I said it.
How the church, when we, about mental health, as we were talking, but I think it's true of things like this as well, about self-love and self-care and things like that.
Well, I think it's the overarching theme or underlying thing, I don't know, but would be if you pray hard enough, if you read your Bible more, if you're spiritual enough, good enough,
have enough faith,
then you you'll solve your problems. You won't have mental health problems. You prayed enough and you put that, bless it, Lord, stamp over it, and then that should be enough. And God is enough. But I think he uses all of these things to find him.
Yeah.
I found the Lord in the Enneagram, and I never knew about it until a few years ago. So it's just, his depths are endless, and the things that he uses in the world that don't seem spiritual are of him too.
Oh yeah.
So
every bit of it. We've talked about that on the show several times. A lot of the time what the church has classified as new age stuff is not, there is no, that's again giving the enemy more power than he's actually capable of, because he's not a creative being. Like, he can't create. So anyway, if you want to hear about that, go back several episodes.
Yeah, that's good.
But it is, and I think we've been taught that self-care is selfish, and that we shouldn't, we're not supposed to be selfish. Well, selfish is a heart issue. That doesn't have anything to do with, laying down being a doormat for everyone in the world to walk across as you have killed yourself serving. That's not.
Yeah, and we've grown up seeing people do that. And the virtuous woman, boy howdy, if you want to be a Proverbs 31 woman, you better be killing yourself, doing all these things. You know, so. Yeah.
Totally. But if you really look into that verse, I think you'd notice that she took care of herself.
She did.
It wasn't just I
love what Henry Cloud says, and he just reposted this on his Instagram. He wrote the book Boundaries, the classic, classic mental health books. If you haven't read it, oh my gosh, it's so good. But he said, every time you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. So what are your priorities, and how are you living your life to serve those things? That, like, what's God put in your heart? Where are your values? Where are your priorities? And if you're saying yes to some random thing over here, you're saying no to one of your priorities. That's God's put in your heart, And so that's part of self-care.
It is.
And that's part of not being selfish, because you're doing what God put in your heart to do. Therefore, you have to say no to some things.
Yeah. And that is, especially for women, that's a really hard one to learn. Yes, I can do it. Let's go. Let's, just constant that yes, but learning that, okay, this is my lane. And my lane is kind of...
It's kind of odd.
Yeah, it really is. It's very odd. And they're all mixed matched and kind of together. But when he says, say yes to this is what I want you to do, somehow those things all kind of integrate together. And I have learned, okay, well, I can't say yes to that because it really does not fit. This is kind of a multi-lane highway here that I'm running on, but this is still my lane, you know? And it's really freeing. When you really learn that, there's no guilt in saying no. Right. And I think that's kind of the hard part, is we feel really guilty about saying no. And as a one, when you tell me you would like something done, and my mom and I have had to have this conversation, because my mom just will spout off things that, here's the list. Yeah. She's not telling me to do it. She's just saying, hey, this needs to get done sometime.
And you think you have to do it.
You tell me. And I'm like, oh, it has to be done right now. And even working at the boutique now, Megan came through one day and she was like, well, this needs to be done, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. And I was like, there's no way I can do all this. I was like, okay, well, what would you like me to work on first? What needs to get finished first? And she was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, well, I don't know that I can get to all those things. And she was like, oh, you thought you needed to do all those? I'm just saying what needs to happen. And I'm like, okay, well, I need you to tell me exactly what you want me to do, because otherwise I think I have to do all of them. You know, it's just, but that's me knowing me.
Exactly, and that's powerful, right there.
Yeah, it really is, because I can stop and say, okay, don't tell me all those things.
Yes, that's so good. I think another motive that comes into play with women, thinking we need to do all the things or can't say no is I'm really important and this thing isn't going to succeed without me.
Yeah.
And that's, we could get into all this, but that's kind of a rescuer mentality of like, I'm so needed, that it's going to fall apart. I'm a hero. And it just really serves me to do all this for you because it makes me feel really good about myself.
Yeah.
And that's hard to accept, that being a reality, but man, I've had to.
Yeah.
I've had to say, you're not a hero.
Yeah.
You're not saving everybody here.
Yeah.
And really, you're probably creating a mess or keeping someone else from the blessing of jumping into this role because you're trying to do everything.
Yeah.
And that's
I'm pretty bad about that myself.
But
too. Or thinking it's not going to get done right if I don't do it.
That, oh my goodness.
That's a one.
Absolutely that. 100%. No one else can do it as good as me.
That's right. And honestly, they can't, but still.
Yeah, they might not, but is that the goal?
Right,
Relationship over perfection, relationship over roles.
Yes.
Man, I say that to myself all the time. What's more important? The relationship.
Always.
Always.
Okay, everyone, that's it for today's show. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know there's so much richness in really becoming self-aware, and it's such a part of the spring cleaning process because if we're not self-aware, how in the world are we going to recognize the mess that is around us and what needs to be cleaned up, what needs to be polished, and put on display. So I'm really excited for you in your journey of becoming more self-aware. I'm excited for myself as I continue this process. It's just good to have those tools in our belt to become more of who I am created to be. So I hope you'll join me next week as we continue this talk about self-awareness and even about a little bit of mental health and self-care, because those are also a part of spring cleaning. So join me right here next week, and be sure and follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. Subscribe here on YouTube, and if you are at all three places, you will know that we have a big giveaway going on right now. So make sure you're hitting all those sites. I'll see you later, guys. Bye.